But tonight we are going to be focused on a very particular one, and it is from anxiety to anticipation. Now, let's talk a little bit about anxiety. Can you second that emotion? We know that anxiety is simply one of the most common emotions that are out there. And when I talk about the different types of emotions that are out there are six main ones, maybe seven, based on which psychologist you want to focus on. But there's anger, there's sadness, there's surprise, there's joy, there's love, and then there's fear. And some psychologists add disgust to that, and we might even cover that one this week. But tonight we're going to be focusing on anxiety. So, anxiety, of course, exists in the fear family, right? Which, again, is one of the most basic human emotions that we have. Now, when we have fear in our life, God actually gave that to us because it actually protects us from some things. So if you heard a loud noise and you knew that it could be danger, then you would respond to it. So fear allows us to be safe, right? It protects us, but it also can wreak havoc in our lives. So let's define it. Let's define anxiety. It's a feeling of worry or unease about an imminent event or uncertain outcome. Basically, it's a fear of the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen. So again, anxiety is really worrying about something because we don't know what's going to happen related to an event or any kind of uncertain outcome. Everybody with me? Can you second that emotion of anxiety and fear? Because we probably have all experienced. So let's talk about what fear looks like, okay? Because when someone is afraid, you can see it all over their face. Remember who sang that song? And it's funny how the way you feel shows on your face, right? Y'all remember that, right? But when somebody has anxiety or they are afraid, it shows up. So what does fear look like? Usually our hands go directly to our face. When you're afraid, your eyes get bigger, your hands go directly to your face. There are things that will happen to you from your hands perspective. You can tell when somebody is afraid. Can others tell when you are afraid? But there are things when you are showing anxiety, there are actually things that are happening in your body. And you know that I will always try to combine mind and body, the mind and body connection. Because again, just because something is going on in our mind does not mean it is not also happening in our body. So typically, if you have some anxiety of some type, it can show up in your blood pressure. It can show up in heart palpitations. Your eyes get bigger. You could be sweating, nausea, headache. And again, that the hands go to the face. But again, whenever we show anxiety, there is going to be something physically going on in your body. Can you second that emotion? That whenever you are afraid, somebody is going to be able to see it on your face, or they're going to be able to see it whenever you respond. I need some comments out there. Can you second that emotion? All right. Did I tell y'all where I second that emotion came from? Y'all know the song, right? Well, it sounds like when Smokey Robinson went to buy his wife some pearls, he was with one of his songwriters, and the salesperson presented the pearls, and Smokey said, "Those are the most beautiful pearls I've ever seen." And the songwriter said, "I second that emotion." He meant to say, "I second that motion," but that's how it ended up becoming a song. So anyway, let me get off of that. All right. But again, when we have anxiety, it's going to show up in our body, and it looks a certain way as well. You may see things like running, you may see withdrawal, you might even experience difficulty sleeping. Like last night, I had anxiety about coming to start this series because I was excited about it. I had anxiety, I had excitement, all going on at the same time. So I had difficulty sleeping. Anybody can say amen to that you, whenever you are dealing with some anxiety of some type, you are going to have some challenges sleeping. And sometimes because when there's immediate fear, because our blood goes to different parts of the body, fear is designed that when we experience it, what happens is the blood flow goes out to our limbs. So just in case you need to run or fight somebody, right? Everything, all the blood is going towards your limbs. So your mind probably isn't focusing as well. So it is so easy to make the wrong decisions whenever we are dealing with anxiety. So let me give you an example. Throughout this series, what I plan to do is to show you some examples of women who are in the Bible who experience the emotion that we're talking about. So tonight, we don't have to go any further than Mary, the mother of Jesus, in order to talk about the anxiety that she experienced. Now let's take a look at Mary, the mother of Jesus. It all started, her anxiety, we know, started with one simple visit. Now, when you talk about emotions, it's a circumstance, it's a mood, or it deals with a relationship of some type. So let's talk about the circumstances that Mary would have experienced. Okay. So the first thing is the visit from the angel. And we really can stop there because that would be enough anxiety for me. Think about it. How many of you all have been visited by an angel, and how would you respond as a young girl that being visited by an angel? Now we know the angel had good news, right? The angel talked about how highly favored she was, right? So the first circumstance which would cause fear is being in the presence of an angel. Okay, even though the angel came with what seemed like it was going to be good news, it was a moment of anxiety. Can anybody agree with that? Can anybody second that emotion for Mary, that had to be some anxiety? Then once the angel says what the angel has to say, then we know that Mary is given an assignment. Now, in our lives, we are also given assignments, but Mary had a very unique assignment that actually seemed impossible in her mind. So when we are faced with a situation, a circumstance that seems impossible in our minds, that is going to evoke a certain amount of anxiety, right? Then think about the anxiety that she experienced when it came to her relationships. What were her parents going to be thinking? You know, y'all know religious people, church folks would have been talking about Mary and probably did talk about Mary, right? Then she still had to deal with her to be husband, right? The deal had already been made. Somebody was going to lose some money. Somebody could possibly die. So again, she has all this anxiety on. Can anybody second Mary's emotions going on in her life with all the things she had going on? So again, we know from the story, right, that Mary accepted her assignment. But when I think about my own life and the anxiety that I dealt with when God tried to show me what my assignment was, first of all, the circumstances. God had clearly given me a message that I was going to be writing a book for pastors' wives. But guess what? That was impossible at the time because at the time I had recently divorced my pastor husband, right? So how that was impossible in my mind. Plus, thinking about the anxiety of writing a book when I was divorced from my first pastor husband. Again, people talking about you, all those things. So the anxiety set in. But again, when God gives you an assignment, which I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm excited about that, we often will get anxious about it unless we know that he has truly given that assignment and that he is going to work out all the details. So again, when I realized that I have been assigned the task of ministering to pastors' wives, and what I thought he said was a book, it actually turned into an entire ministry. But what I had to realize is that was my assignment and that I was chosen to do that. But let's get to that. Let's go back to Mary. Okay, let's go back to Mary. Anyway, spiritually, whenever anxiety is going on in our hearts and minds spiritually, let me tell you what happens to us, right? It can rob us of God's truth. It can be paralyzing to us. It also can keep us from sharing our testimony. It attacks your faith and your confidence. It keeps you from using your gifts. So I clearly saw how that was happening in my own life when God clearly gave me an assignment that, again, I thought was impossible, but God knew that He was going to work out the details. So let's talk about how we can move from anxiety to anticipation. Now, we all know, again, what anxiety is. It's when we have a fear of the unknown. But do you know what anticipation is? Anticipation is being excited about something, saying that we are ready. We will do whatever has been asked of us, and we look forward to doing it. In fact, we might be excited about it. So that's exactly what happened to Mary. She became excited about it. She finally said, Lord, whatever you want to do with me, I am your servant and I am ready. Remember that anxiety? Now she moved over to anticipation. So let me give you 3 ways that you can move from anxiety to anticipation. Let's start with step number 1. First thing you have to do is accept your assignment. Just like Mary did, she says, yes, I will be the mother for the Lord. And y'all go read that in the Luke version. That's a lovely version of this entire story. But Mary said, yes, I will be the mother of my Lord. As his servant, I accept whatever he has for me. May everything be as you say. And again, that's anticipation. She, first of all, again, had to say yes. And once she said yes, then she was able to speak out and move from, again, that anxiety that was surely there to the anticipation. But think about your own life. Has God given you an assignment? Do you even know what that assignment is? If you don't know what that assignment is, then that's going to cause some anxiety. So you cannot accept your assignment until you know what your assignment is. And also knowing the value that it's going to bring to the kingdom. Soon as Mary heard that she was going to be giving birth to the Savior of the world, soon as I truly heard that I was going to be a blessing to other pastors' wives and women married to influencers, then I could be more excited because God was going to make the way for that. All right, so step number 1, remember, was that we have to accept our assignment. Then step number 2 is that you have to focus on favor and possibility. If God has chosen you, He is automatically going to give you favor, just like He did for Mary. When the angel first showed up, all the angel could talk about was the favor, that she was blessed and highly favored, right? So again, don't focus on how impossible your assignment seems. Focus on the fact that you have been granted favor. And when you are chosen for this, as I say, you are granted that favor that helps you, again, to be able to not focus any longer on the impossibilities, because that's God's job, right? That is God's job to make sure that it comes to fruition and He puts everything in place. All we have to do is say yes. All right. Okay. So ready for number 3? You all ready for number 3? All right. The last thing that helped Mary to move from anxiety to anticipation was that Mary found a safe place. So step 3 is you have to have a safe place. Y'all know what Mary did. As soon as she finished talking to the angel, she packed her little stuff. She took off and ran directly to her cousin Elizabeth's house because God had already told her what was going on with Elizabeth. And that safe place for Mary was a place where she could be understood. And it was a joyous greeting. We all know the story. Again, I'm not going to tell y'all the story because you probably heard it a million times over the last week. But again, because God had already prepared the way, He had a safe place prepared for her. So think about it. Again, who is she going to talk to? And even in my situation, when God directed me that you're going to be working with pastors' wives, you're going to write a book for pastors' wives. And at the time, I was divorced from a pastor and had no idea that I was eventually going to marry another pastor. I had to let God work out those details and quit worrying about the impossibility. In fact, I was saying, this can't, that won't happen. Maybe I'll be writing one about what it was like. But anyway, sorry about that, y'all. I digress for a second. All right, but God prepared the way. Mary left for her cousin's house and she got that joyous confirmation. She had someone who understood what she was going through and what her circumstances was, and somebody that could give her the encouragement she needed. In fact, she got so encouraged, we know that it ultimately she wrote Mary's song. So again, read that when you get a chance. But again, Mary had everything she needed to turn her anxiety into anticipation. And you can have everything that you need in order to turn your anxiety into anticipation. So, and again, I have worked with seasoned pastors' wives who have put their assignment on hold because of anxiety, or because worrying what somebody else was going to say, or feeling like they weren't good enough, having that anxiety about what others were going to think of them, or again, just having the anxiety of believing that things were impossible. So again, when we can realize that we have been chosen and when we have favor with God, then we can walk right on into our assignment and move from that anxiety to that anticipation. Okay, somebody, oh, all right. So that is how you move from anxiety to anticipation. All right. So who was that wanted to see that one slide again? Because I don't know which slide you're talking about because I've shown a few of them. Anyway, again, know that anxiety does not have to take over your life because, again, that anxiety, remember, it manifests itself physically as well, which can lead to challenges, health challenges. So, again, know how you can move from anxiety to anticipation. So, this is night one, y'all. This is session one. Tomorrow, we are going to be talking about from shamed to selected. Yes, this is going to be good.